Vrindavanashari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtakashata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, text number 24. Nabhi Hridat Iha Sataha Ambhasi Yasya Pumsaha Vijnana Shakti Aham Asam Ananta Shakti Rupam Vichitram Idam Asya Vivrinvataha Me Ma Rishishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha Nabhi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktir Ahamasanananta Shakti Rupam Vichitram Idamasya Vivrinvato Me Marishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha Nabhi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktir Ahamasanananta Shakti Rupam Vichitram Idamasya Vivrinvato Me Marishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha Nabhi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Hradad Hradad Hra. Okay. Nabhi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktir Ahamasamananta Shakti Rupam Vichitram Idamasya Vivrinvato Me Marishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha. Please stand. Nabhi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Nabhi Hradadiha
Shaktirahama Samananta Shaktehe Rupam Vichitramidamasya Vivrinvato Me Mari Rashishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha
Nabi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktirahamasanamananta Shakte Rupam Vichitramidamasya Vibrinvato Me Mari Rishishta Nigamasya Giramana Visargaha Nabi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktirahamasanamananta Shakte Rupam Vichitramidamasya Vibrinvato Me Mari Rishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha Nabi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktirahamasanamananta Shakte Rupam Vichitramidamasya Vibrinvato Me Mari Rishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha
Mataji's?
Nabi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktirahamasanamananta Shakte Rupam Vichitramidamasya Vibrinvato Me Mari Rishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha Nabi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktirahamasanamananta Shakte Rupam Vichitramidamasya Vibrinvato Me Mari Rishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha Nabi Hradadiha Satom Bhasiyasya Pumso Vijnana Shaktirahamasanamananta Shakte Rupam Vichitramidamasya Vibrinvato Me Mari Rishishta Nigamasya Giram Visargaha
Nabhi Hradat from the navel lake. Iha, in this millennium. Sataha, lying. Ambhasi, in the water. Yasya, one who. Pumsaha, of the personality of Godhead. Vijnana, of the total universe. Shaktihi, energy. Aham, I. Asam, was born. Ananta, unlimited. Shaktehi, of the powerful. Rupam, form. vichitram, variegated, idam, this, asya, his, vivrinvataha, manifesting, me, unto me, ma, may not, ririshishta, vanish, nigamasya, of the Vedas, giram, of the sounds, visargaha, vibration. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Lord's potencies are innumerable. As He lies down in the water of devastation, I am born as the total universal energy from the navel lake in which the lotus sprouts. I am now engaged in manifesting His diverse energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. I therefore pray that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of Vedic hymns. Every person engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord in this material world is prone to so many material activities. And if one is not strong enough to protect himself against the onslaught of material affection, he may be diverted from the spiritual energy. In the material creation, Brahma has to create all kinds of living entities with bodies suitable to their material conditions. Brahma wants to be protected by the Lord because he has to contact many vicious living entities. An ordinary Brahmana may fall from the Brahma Tejas, or the power of Brahminical excellence, due to his association with many fallen conditioned souls. Brahma, as the supermost Brahmana, is afraid of such a fall down, and therefore he prays to the Lord for protection. This is a warning for one and all in the spiritual advancement of life. Unless one is sufficiently protected by the Lord, he may fall down from his spiritual position. Therefore, one has to pray constantly to the Lord for protection and the blessing to carry out one's duty. Lord Chaitanya also entrusted his missionary work to his devotees and assured them of his protection against the onslaught of material affection. The path of spiritual life is stated in the Vedas to be like the edge of a sharpened razor. A little inattentiveness may at once create havoc and bloodshed, but one who is completely surrendered soul, always seeking protection from the Lord in the discharge of his entrusted duties, has no fear of falling into material contamination. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gnanjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitamina Bhutali Swayam Rupakada Vayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamshta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Pare Vansha Kopatu Abhyasha Kripa Sindhu Bhyavacha Patita Nam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnavi Bhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmate Bhaktivikasa Swamin Itinamane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharane Nivishesha Shunavadi Pashtati Deshidharane Buddha Mahadbiri Mafpura Vibor Nirmaya Shetiyad Amusha Purashaha Bhunkte Gunan Shodasha Shodashatmaka Sarang Shishta Bhagavan Vacham Sime. So today is a few appearance and disappearance days. The first one is today is the appearance day of Sita-Devī, the consort of Lord Ram. We know her, she's quite famous. So today she appeared out of the earth when Janak Maharaj, after the land, it was undergoing some drought for some time, and he had Brahmanas execute yajna. And then he was instructed to plow the land, and he plowed the land, and from that land came, I believe, a golden box, and within that box was Sita-Devī there. Obviously, later she went on to Maharaj Janak. He made a vow that he had a bow of Lord Shiva, which is very strong. If we read in the Krishna book, Kamsa also had a similar bow, and he put. We hear stories of how Krishna not only lifted that bow, he strung it and then he broke it. So it's a huge bow, the bow of Lord Shiva. So he presumably has many bows. So Janak Maharaj, he had one such bow, and so he made a resolution that I'll only give the hand of Sita-Devī to one who could string this bow. And so that bow was strung by Lord Ram, who then won the hand of Sita-Devī. And then the whole story of the Ramayana continues from there, basically. She was kidnapped later by Ravan. And then sent to Lanka, where she resided from some time. She was visited by Hanuman as a scout, you could say. And then Ram himself went there later with his army of monkeys and destroyed the place. And then Sita-Devi's chastity was proved when she entered the fire. So, yeah, this is just a summary of her life. She appeared today. She's the internal energy of Lord Ramachandra, his eternal consort. So similarly, today is also the appearance date of Srimati Jahnavī-Devī, the consort of Lord Nityananda. There's not so much information about her that I know about. She's not in Chaitanya Bhagavat, and she's not in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Her name is mentioned in the purports, but mainly information about her comes from books like Bhakti Ratnakar, which I haven't read. She is the wife of Lord Nityananda. Primarily, she was more active and more prominent after Lord Chaitanya disappeared. She was present famously at the Khechuri festival that Narottam Das Thakur arranged. And she was also acting as an acharya within her line. She initiated disciples. So yeah, this is it succinctly. This is what, without myself going to those books, I could gather. She's a Nanga Manjari in Vrindavan, interestingly enough. And then as well, today is Jahnavī-Devī. Then today is also the disappearance day of Madhu Pandita. I couldn't find anything on him. What little I could find, he's not mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavat. He comes in Bhakti Ratnakar, only briefly mentioned. His father was a Sanskrit scholar who taught him Srimad Bhagavatam, and he also learned Sanskrit verses under him. So hence the name Pandit. I couldn't find so much information. He's noted in a purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita as being a famous devotee. That fame is unknown to me, forgive me. He constructed the Gopinathji temple in Vrindavan, which is significant, which is a major temple there. So today is his disappearance day. So these are three important personalities who disappeared today. So this verse, I'll go to the translation again as a recap. The Lord's potencies are innumerable. As he lies down in the water of devastation, I am born from the total universal energy from the navel lake in which the lotus sprouts. I am now engaged in manifesting his diverse energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. I therefore pray that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. So there's a few points here. Brahma is telling where he comes from the navel lake. So he's saying he's born from the Lord, and he's engaged. He's born from the total universal energy, and he's now engaged in manifesting the Supreme Lord's energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. So, in one sense, he's expressing his dependence upon the Lord because he's completely enshrouded by the Lord. He's born from the Lord's potency, and also he's completely absorbed in working with that potency. That's all he's dealing with. But so where he came from and what he's currently doing, both has its association with the Lord. Therefore, he's praying unto the Lord, expressing this dependence. He's praying that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. Although Brahma acknowledges that he's has his source from the Lord's potencies, he's discriminating that there's material potencies and there's spiritual potencies. And he says here material activities. Srila Prabhupada translates like that. So anyway, he prays here for the protection. That's the important part. I therefore pray that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. That's quite obvious, that in his course of working with the Lord's supreme energy, he doesn't forget about the Lord, or specifically Nigama. He doesn't forget the Vedic vibrations, what he's learned what the Lord has given him. The Lord has instructed him the Vedas from within the heart, Tini Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye, etc. So he's praying not to forget that. Why? Because of association with material activities. Srila Prabhupada in his purport, he says, every person engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord in this material world is prone to so many material activities. So just by being in this material world, or as you take it here, Srila Prabhupada says, every person, even though they're engaged in devotional service, if they're in the material world, they're prone to material activities. It's just like if you're located near, I don't know, a beach or something, you're prone to get wet because that's the nature of the place. And if one is not strong enough to protect himself against the onslaught of material affection, he may be diverted from the spiritual energy. Actually, it's impossible to protect yourself against the onslaught. You can only get protection by Krishna's mercy, as Brahma is praying here. So, succinctly, anyway, I could continue, but it's a very important point. If one is not strong enough to protect himself, he may be diverted from the spiritual energy. So even though one may be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, he may be engaged in devotional service, because of this material world means we're using Krishna's energies, we're more or less dovetailing the material energy in Krishna's service. There's always a danger, because that material energy can mislead us in many different ways. There's so many ways to go in this. Both the thing we take itself can mislead us. Is just like now I'm using this thing as to help me give class, but I can so I'm using it as a tool, but I can also be completely bewildered by such an object. Being, for example, a better example, a more concrete example, I work on a computer daily. I can become engrossed by that same computer. The details, the manufacturing, the specifications of the computer, what model of that computer is, or even other things going on the internet, going to different websites. So I'm using those things as a form of service, and Krishna can be served through those mediums, but those same objects we're using to serve Krishna can be a source of our bewilderment. Just as Lord Brahma, he's creating with Krishna's energies, but those same energies of Krishna, through carelessness, or through not praying for the Lord's mercy, can also be a cause of fall down. This is a general principle. So Krishna keeps us safe, and Brahma he's praying for Krishna's mercy. He makes the point here, Srila Prabhupada, that even Brahmanas, they can fall from the Brahminical platform by association with conditioned souls. Brahma, he's manifesting, not exactly directly, but so many conditioned souls, he's giving them facility for material bodies, and then he consequently associates with them because he's Jagat Pita, he's the head of the universe. He oversees so many different affairs in the universe, most of which aren't exactly spiritual, although he's taking it as a service of Krishna. Largely what Brahma deals with is not exactly spiritual, just like you see him getting involved in the change of Manu's, the continuation of Manu's dynasty, etc. like that. In one sense, it's spiritual because it ensures the continuity of dharma, but in another sense, it's just he's overseeing the propagation of progeny, which is about as mundane as it gets. So you could view it from different ways, but it's not exactly that Brahma is always engaged in chanting Krishna's names, for example. He's also handling practical things with a material energy. So, so Brahma, this is a danger for Brahmanas. So anyway, so Brahmanas, they have such a danger by associating with conditioned souls. We understand satsanga is dangerous for spiritual life. What to speak of Brahma, as the supermost Brahmana, as the example, he's demonstrating his fear of fall down, and he's praying to the Lord for protection. So this is the central point I want to cover. This is a warning for one and all in the spiritual advancement of life. Unless one is sufficiently protected by the Lord, he may fall down from his spiritual position. Therefore, one has to pray constantly to the Lord for protection and the blessing to carry out one's duty. There's a very significant point we could unpack. This is a warning for all of us. Unless one is sufficiently protected by the Lord, he may fall down from his spiritual position. We may have a spiritual position, but unless the Lord protects us, we fall down from that position. And actually that position is maintained not by our own potency or even Brahma Tejas, it's maintained by the Lord's mercy. always and forever, because devotional service is transcendental. It's not dependent on our own learning, opulence, fame, sense control, anything like that. More, when it boils down to it, is dependent upon even sense control, because you see Mayavadis also fall, who have a much greater degree of sense control than many of those joining the Krishna consciousness movement. So really the thing is the Lord props one up. So therefore it's essential, Srila Prabhupada writes here, therefore one has to pray constantly to the Lord for protection and the blessing to carry out one's duties. So there's two things. Brahma is praying for the blessing to carry out his duty and also for protection by the Lord, to not be deviated from that. So a few things I wanted to cover. So yeah, the essence is this: Krishna keeps us safe. Krishna maintains us on the platform we are on. Yogakshema Vahamyaham. He maintains what we have, where we're at in devotional service. You can take this line in many different ways. He preserves what we have. Usually people think of it in materialistic terms. But he also maintains our position in devotional service. He doesn't allow us to slip down in devotional service. So far we're sincere. So far we're ananyas chintayantu mam yijana paripasati. So long we're worshiping Krishna, sincerely so, Krishna doesn't allow us to slip from his grip. He maintains our position in devotional service. Of course, that's nuanced. But yes, Krishna maintains us, he keeps us safe, and we should look for that protection, and specifically pray for that protection. It's very important. Different instances of Srila Prabhupada are quite often related in classes, that he himself was praying to Krishna not to fall down. And as well, many different things are there. There's the quote, which you won't find in Veda-based, but it's commonly quoted, that my disciples, or something runs, I was commonly told, the greatest fault among my disciples is that they're not afraid of Maya. So we should be afraid of Maya. We should be afraid of, although Krishna maintains us, we should be afraid of falling back into the material pool. And we should pray for Krishna's mercy, because anything can happen, even in the course of service. Just like Lord Brahma, he's dealing with a mode of passion. So excessive association with a mode of passion, it can lead to being influenced by the mode of passion. So we should pray. So he's praying for Krishna not to be influenced by that. Otherwise, in the course of his activities, there's every possibility of he becoming bewildered, as he actually did. As we see, I don't know if it comes later or early, maybe early in the second canto, Lord Brahma actually became bewildered in the matter of creating. He chased after his own daughter. We hear that there. So it's not unheard of. And it's not unheard of in the history of devotional service and the history of ISKCON as well, our short history. Many devotees have fallen down. There are many different types of fall down. We even hear of a fall down in one sense of Lord Brahma. Of course, he came back from that. He cast off his body, etc., like that. But there's different types of fall down. We're hearing about protection by Krishna. When that protection is not there, then we fall down. There's different types of fall down, and there's different ways to fall down. There's those who fall down from the principles, and they're just down and out. They bloop, in other words. They fall down, and they're gone. You never see them again. And, of course, there's grades with that. Some people come to the temple or a center. They associate with devotees for a week or two, and then you never see them the rest of their life. That's fine. They got some eternal benefit. Something is there. But, they've blooped. They've gone back into the material pool. Brahmananda Prabhu and Chidananda Prabhu, they coined this term in 1966. I think this has been told before, but Srila Prabhupada, he would say when somebody left the storefront like that, he would say they've entered back into the material pool, something like that. And so the devotees coined this term bloop, because Prabhupada would make this motion like this. And so, when you throw a rock in a pool or a pebble in a pond, something like that, it makes this bloop noise. So bloop, they've gone. They enter into the material pool. And just like when you throw a rock into a lake or something like that, good luck finding it. It's gone. So some people bloop like that. You can't find them again. They're just gone. Other people, they fall down, but they may recover. They have some slip, and they recover. They come back to devotional service. Of course, many different varieties. They may go maybe years out of devotional service, may come back. Maybe decades out of devotional service. I've seen that. I at least know people like that who have been out of touch with devotional service for decades, but Krishna brings them back. Or it may just be a short spill. Or it may be just a slip in devotional service. Such things are possible. Sometimes devotees may fall down for years together. Means not exactly go away, but they may be struggling with some particular principle for years together. Different things usually elicit sex. Among Srila Prabhupada's disciples, Srila Prabhupada, he himself noted the perennial disease of the Western people is sex. Sex desire elicits sex. And no matter how, among Srila Prabhupada's own disciples, no matter how fixed up his disciples seemed to be, how much association they had with Srila Prabhupada, and how well they seemed to be doing devotional service, Gurmurti writes in Muda Mission that they always seemed to be on the precipice of fall down. And it was true, actually. If you look at Srila Prabhupada's followers, there are many different, not to separate ourselves from them, it's still continuing today, but many of them, even leaders within his movement, it's quite shocking, the varieties of fall downs they experience. Mainly sensual. Mainly, the difficulties of Srila Prabhupada's own disciples weren't due to insincerity or doubts in the philosophy, of course some, but mainly due to sensuality, weakness of heart. It's just like Lord Brahma, he's sincere, he's engaging in the service sincerely, but he's praying that nothing goes wrong in the course of engaging in that service, that his mind may not be deviated from the vibration of Vedic hymns. Vibration of Vedic hymns, in one sense, you could take it as Krishna's instructions, because Krishna directly instructed Brahma the Vedas. So when our mind gets deviated from the instructions of Krishna, from the instructions of the spiritual master, we can fall down. So, yeah, there's different types of fall down. Srila Prabhupada, I'm speaking about Srila Prabhupada's disciples. How does Srila Prabhupada personally deal with fall down? Different ways. He was quite strict in some ways. He said that, as is common, we've seen many quotes like this, those who take a vow before the fire, before the Vaishnavas, before the deity, and they break it, they're no better than animals. They're less than, they can't even be considered a human being. Other times he said he gave some leeway. He said, once I'll forgive, twice I'll forgive, but 3 times I won't forgive. Although he never actually implemented that. Srila Prabhupada always forgave his disciples, pretty much at every single situation, especially for those disciples who did substantive service for the movement. When a devotee does significant service, Krishna doesn't forget that, and the spiritual master doesn't forget that. And we saw that practically in Srila Prabhupada's life. There are many different examples. Speaking of fall down, just to cite some, an early sannyasi, and the first sannyasi to fall down, he approached Srila Prabhupada in Mexico, and he asked him something along the lines of, Srila Prabhupada, do you reject me as a disciple because I've fallen down from sannyasi? He was the first sannyasi to fall down in the movement. You can imagine how horrible he must have felt. And he quoted, I think Chaitanya Charitamrita was published at that point, or at least the knowledge of Chota Haridas, who committed suicide and Lord Chaitanya rejected. So anyway, the sannyasi approached Srila Prabhupada and he asked him what Srila Prabhupada thought and if Srila Prabhupada had rejected. And Srila Prabhupada replied, no, Chaitanya may have done that, but Chaitanya is God, I'm not God. I need all the help I can get. And he forgave the disciple and he went on to marry, according to my knowledge. Other instances, there's so many instances. Fabulous, typically among Srila Prabhupada's Western disciples, when they fell, they did spectacularly so. There is one disciple who, he was a personal servant of Srila Prabhupada, had his association for many years. Then he went on to take sannyas, and then he was found drying marijuana in the temple kitchen of Los Angeles. It's quite shocking. Others, illicit sex was common. Another stupendous incident. The temple president of Srila Prabhupada's then booming New York Center, which was one of the most vibrant and largest centers in the movement, the temple president was long-standing. He was a BBT trustee. He was also a sannyasi. And he, succinctly summing it up, he was bewildered into marrying some pseudo-devotee who posed herself as the heir of the Toyota fortune, who was actually elderly. This sannyasi was something like in his 20s, and this woman was in her 40s or something like that. She was practically double his age. And so he married her. So he gave up sannyas to marry her, and then she continued. She ate meat in the temple, and then also she propagated that her now husband was an incarnation of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he let this go on, actually. So it was pretty amazing, pretty amazing how things can go on like this. But Srila Prabhupada replied that, nevertheless, although it's a fall down, both of them can be rectified if they're sincere and they repent for what they've done. So my point in covering this is that citing the fabulous instances of some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples is that despite such fabulous incidents, Srila Prabhupada is always open to forgiveness, to forgive and forget, and that largely was Srila Prabhupada's policy. As Krishna says in the Gita, on a more optimistic note, Abhichitsu duracharo bhajanti mama nyanibhak sadhur eva samantavya samyagvyavasito hi saha. One who, even if one commits an abominable act, Srila Prabhupada translates, still he's to consider saintly. He's to be considered a sadhu, which is a pretty amazing statement. You don't think of a sadhu as one who commits an abominable activity. It's almost exactly the opposite. So Srila Prabhupada's perspective was of this. Another incident, which is quite amazing to me. A temple president, I believe in Detroit then. No, I think this was in Britain. So the temple president of London Center, he was not seen at the temple programs. He was understandably not chanting his rounds. I don't know if he was following the four regular principles, but if you're not chanting, then it's not so far off. And by his business schemes, he had plunged the whole British yatra into debt. And they wanted to remove him from his position. And the devotees of the area, they approached Srila Prabhupada saying, we don't want to kick this man out. But Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter in reply saying that he has done great service. He should be given another chance. He wasn't chanting, he wasn't going to the temple program and nothing. He put the whole reason into debt, but Srila Prabhupada was very tolerant and forgiving of that. Because he could perceive sincerity. That's the key thing. If sincerity is there, Krishna protects us. The demigods, they pray. You can pull up one verse. I quoted it recently, but it's worth quoting again because it's relevant. 10:2, whoever's controlling. Canto 10, chapter 2, text number 33. So before this comes Yeni Ravanaksha Vimuktamani. That's impersonalists fall down. But devotees, you can go to Sanskrit. It's nice to recite. Tata niti madhavadhavaka kvachit brashanti margatavai badah sauridaha Dvaya bigupta vichaniti nirbhaya vinayaka nikapamordaso prabhu. O Madhava, O husband, Supreme Personality of God, the Lord of the Goddess of Fortune, a devotee is completely in love with you, sometimes fall from the path of devotion. They do not fall like non-devotees, for you still protect them. Thus, they fearlessly traverse the heads of the opponents and continue to progress in devotional service. So a key point here is that, go up a little bit, what is that? Devotees completely in love with you fall from the path of devotion. They don't fall like non-devotees. For somebody who is in love with Krishna, who's sincere in the heart, the spiritual master sees that, and Krishna also sees that. Therefore, you have different grades of fall downs. Like I'm saying, sometimes you have devotees, you see they struggle with some difficulty for years. Some devotees, we hear of them struggling with intoxication for years. Commonly, illicit sex is also there. It's more common. So for years together, they'll struggle with, and they may have taken vows, they'll struggle with such a propensity, but Krishna doesn't kick them away. Why? Because of this verse. Because of the sincerity, Krishna doesn't let them fall like non-devotees. Even if they have some weakness of heart, Krishna keeps them close to his lotus feet, and he sees to the rectification. He helps them in devotional service. He never, Srila Prabhupada writes in the first canto 9th chapter that devotional service, the process of devotional service is just like setting fire to a line of gunpowder. It continues without stoppage. So even though one may fall and superficially, there may be a gap, sometimes a gap of millions of births, as Srila Prabhupada said. Still, in the context of eternal time, millions of births is practically nothing. Even if you take birth as a demigod, millions and millions of times, in the scope of eternal time is just a blip in time. So Krishna doesn't let devotees go ever. So we can take comfort in that fact. We see, for example, I was citing Brahma's fall down, who most of us are familiar with, that he chased after his own daughter. Immediately he cast away that subtle body. He continued with his service. So he gave up that polluted mentality. He continued on with his service. And like that, everything was fine. He continued on like that. So we may slip in devotional service. Devotees may slip in devotional service, but so long we're sincere, so long we are not we try to follow to the best of our ability, Krishna sees that. So fall down in the matter of service is worth talking about, because Brahma he's directly talking about here. I pray that in the course of my material activities I may not be deviated from the vibration of Vedic hymns. So in the course, I was speaking earlier, in the course of performing a service, fall down is also possible. Even though we may be very dedicated, still, by circumstance, by accident, whatever it may be, due to carelessness, we can also fall, even though we may be completely absorbed in service. We can be attending the morning program fully, chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regular principles, performing service, but still in the course of that, fall down is still possible. It's still possible for Maya to bewilder us. How? Well, there's so many different ways. Why does fall down happen? I was thinking of this. There's so many different ways. Loose dealings, carelessness in our own devotional service can come in different forms. A prominent thing is loose dealings between the opposite sex. It's a very common thing. Has claimed many different devotees over the decades. Carelessness in dealing with the opposite sex. As soon as we become careless in dealing with the opposite sex, then it opens the floodgates for fall down. Even if we're sincere, we may be sincere in devotional service, but if we're careless, then what can you do? It's just like anyway, without going into that. So if we're careless, this accidents can happen. That's the thing. Accidental fall downs, we hear of this. For example, Bharat Maharaj, he was careless in one sense. Of course, in another way, that was an arrangement by Krishna. We also hear that perspective. But he became attached to a deer. He was very sincerely executing devotional service in a secluded place. He was dedicating his life to Krishna. But due to carelessness and reposing his affection in a material object, just some baby deer, he was forced to... He had to leave that situation and take birth as a deer. Of course, he continued his devotional service elsewhere, but it's one such instance of carelessness in devotional service. Other things, bad association. This example of the temple president, this incident of declaring incarnation of Bhaktisiddhanta, the eating meat in the temple, etc. like this. Srila Prabhupada attributed this fall down due to bad association of his wife, this girl. So due to bad association, we can fall down. Offenses is a very prominent thing. We commit offenses to devotees. Offenses to devotees, offenses to the deities, offenses in service, offenses to the holy name, we can fall down. Of course, offenses may be there. It's nuanced. It's hard to get into the specifics. Inevitably, there are offenses in chanting, but we should try to clear those offenses in chanting. We should educate ourselves to the offenses in deity worship and actively avoid those. We should not make offenses to devotees. We should be gentler in dealings towards devotees as a principle. Even if some devotees are difficult personalities to be around, which is inevitable. There's so many devotees, there's so many different types of personalities, and everybody's not compatible with everybody. But we should be respectful towards everyone. Because everybody is a servant of Krishna, everybody's the property of Krishna, and also carelessness in not doing so, it can lead to offense. So as accumulation of offenses can prominently lead to fall down. Gradually, so Srila Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion, he says that it's like the effect of the waning moon is gradual. It's not that unless it's some sort of spectacular offense. It's usually not something immediate. More, it translates as we become offensive, then we lose taste in service, then gradually things become stale. Then we may either we leave devotional service, or more commonly, we may slip, and we start to wonder why we're experiencing difficulty in devotional service. And it's gradual like that. So offenses is one thing. Another thing, we could be in a wrong situation. We could be in the wrong ashrama. Srila Prabhupada writes in the 8th canto, regarding Gajendra, we should be in a situation that is conducive to fight Maya in. Otherwise, if we're in a situation, it's just as Gajendra, he couldn't fight the crocodile because he was in the lake. So we will have difficulty fighting against Maya if we're in a situation that's not suited to our mentality. If we're a brahmachari, or a renunciate, we'll just take it like that, if we're a renunciate that's trying to live like a grahasta or entering into a grahasta situation, it won't bode well for us. So similarly too, if we're of a grihastha mentality, householder mentality, but we're trying to live as a renunciate, is a bad situation to be in. For some time we can continue like that, but if we're in the wrong ashrama, it doesn't put us in a good situation to fight against Maya. Another thing is we can so these are just some considerations of why fall down occur. Another thing is we can lose the point of why we're doing the service that we're doing. We may be entrusted with some service, as Lord Brahma is entrusted with some service. We may lose the point of it. Lord Brahma, he's creating, he's the universal head. He can completely lose we can understand it's a fact, although it's not explicitly narrated here. Every living entity comes to this material world, as has been stated before, as Brahma. And then that Brahma, he gets empowerment by Lord Krishna directly. Otherwise, the Brahma, he can't create. So it's understandable, we can understand by logic that Brahmas, it's possible for Brahma or Brahmas to be bewildered in their course of activities and forget about Lord Krishna and consider themselves as head as the universe. Of course, Brahma here, our Brahma, is not become of him like that, but it's become of us because now we're in this human form of life. At one point we were Brahma, but we became bewildered. We forgot about Krishna one way or another. It may not be such in a gross way, but it came about somehow. So in the matter of performing our service, my point is not to focus on get tangential, but in the matter of performing our service, we can lose the point of why we're performing the service. We can forget that we're a servant of Krishna, and we're performing the service for the benefit of Krishna, not for our own sake, whatever it may be. In cooking, it's important to remember that we're always cooking for Krishna's pleasure, not for our own pleasure. And managing a temple, you see this not commonly, but it's not exactly, you find this in some places. People managing a temple management means you're managing on behalf of Krishna, but if you take temple management as a means of livelihood and as a professional occupation, that I'm temple president, and the funds that come, the donations that are going into the hundi are for me, and I oversee the distribution, and I can take my share, as a mundane mentality. Then you've lost the point of why you're temple president to begin with in the first place. This is just one example. So many things can be there. Book distribution, another one. You can be distributing books only for profit. Of course, some devotees do so. We've covered this previously to sustain themselves. That's fine. But a money-making mentality is not encouraged. Nor is an added prestige-oriented mentality. It's possible in book distribution. It's possible in any service. Performing in any service, these subtle contaminations, that labh, puja, pratishta, fame, respect, etc. So if we start performing service with a desire for these things in mind, rather than the sake of performing the service for pleasing Krishna, we can fall down. One letter from Srila Prabhupada, he writes, this was later in the movement when many of his leaders were falling down. He wrote in one letter, "It is now evident that some of our top men are very ambitious, and there have been so many fall downs." So, because of ambition among Srila Prabhupada's top men, he's writing here, many of them fell down. So if we become materially ambitious in our service, we should be ambitious in our service, but we should be spiritually ambitious, not materially ambitious. We should be spiritually ambitious to, for example, taking the point of the book distribution, to increase book distribution, for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, just like we said in the morning, for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, we do these things, not for our own pleasure. So we should be spiritually ambitious, not materially ambitious. That material ambition can lead to fall down in any aspect of service. This is speaking about fall down. Just to wrap up a little bit here. Different things, just miscellaneous points I didn't weave in so well. Krishna in Uddhava Gita, he says to Uddhava that even though a devotee may fall down, if he sincerely repents his sinful activities, then I forgive him. So that's the sake of solace. I couldn't find the verse I was looking for, but I don't know the Sanskrit for that. As the sake of solace for us who are fallen. Most of us are coming from fallen backgrounds, myself especially. Krishna is Patita Pavana. He's the uplifter of the fallen. Lord Chaitanya especially so. Patita Pavan Hitu, Taba Avatar, Mo Shama Patita Prabhu, Na Paibi Ar. That if you're looking for somebody no fallen, you're the uplifter of the fallen, and if you examine, you won't find anybody more fallen than myself. So we can find encouragement that even though we may be fallen in so many different ways, grossly or subtly so, Lord Chaitanya, his purpose, his reason or cause for coming as an incarnation is specifically to uplift the fallen. So we can find solace in that. And we should pray to Krishna for protection. I didn't speak so much about this, but it's very, very important, as Srila Prabhupada writes here. Unless he is sufficiently protected by the Lord, he may fall down from this spiritual position. Therefore, one has to pray constantly for the Lord for protection. So we have to pray to the Lord for protection. It's practically an item of sadhana, actually. Intelligence to execute our service, but also intelligence not to become bewildered by that service or fall down in whatever we're doing. We have to look for Krishna's mercy. Another thing, if I can find it, Srila Prabhupada quoted here, I didn't pull it up in quoting or preparing for the class, but you can pull up CC Madhu Pandita 7:128. He quotes it here in this purport. He says, Lord Chaitanya entrusted missionary work to his devotees, and he assured them of this. 7, Madhya Lila, chapter 7, verse 128. 128, sorry. Yeah, famous verse. Jari deka tarikaha Krishna upadesh, amara agyaya guru hoya tar edesh. Instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna as they're given in Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everybody in this land. And he continues, I'll just read the next verse. You can go to the translation. We'll just read. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further advised the Brahmana Kurma, if you follow this instruction, your materialistic life at home will not obstruct your spiritual advancement. Indeed, if you follow these regular principles, we will again meet here, or rather, you will never lose my company. Next verse. What is that? Here. Go to the Bengali at the top. Kabuna bhatiti tomar bishay taranga. If you go to the word for word, at any time not will obstruct your vishay taranga. The materialistic vishay taranga means like waves of like bishay. Materialistic waves of like sense enjoyment. It won't obstruct you at any time. You won't be inundated by Maya's waves if you follow my instructions. Lord Chaitanya, he assures them here. So Srila Prabhupada is elaborating them that he entrusted the missionary work and assured them a protection against the onslaught of material affection. Specifically, his missionary work, it protects us against Maya. This is very important. Then there's other points. Path of spiritual life is like a razor. Srila Prabhupada quotes here. A little inattentiveness. I was speaking on that. Inattentiveness in our dealings. Specifically, it's led to many different fall downs in the history of the devotional service. But for those who are always seeking the protection of the Lord, even if they're engaged in a dangerous situation, Krishna protects them. And Krishna doesn't, even they may fall, but ultimately, Krishna protects them. Krishna doesn't let them glide away from his lotus feet. They have no fear of falling into the material contamination, as Srila Prabhupada says here. So this is some thoughts on Lord Brahma's praying for protection and not to fall down and be deviated from the vibration of him. So I can end it there. If anybody has any comments or questions about the personalities today or the verse, we can discuss. Anything, men? No. Madhus? Yes.
So the Hare Krishna? Is it dead?
Is it muted on the stick?
There's a green and a red light.
On the stick itself, there's.
It was muted.
Oh. So.
Anyway, mainly it's for the online. I can hear you, so you can just.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep it so that people online can hear.
Okay, so the point about fall downs and different spiritual leaders falling down, I just wanted to know what your opinion is and how they are to be integrated back into society. Leaders is also like non-leaders when they fall down, because when I asked this question in Bhakti Shastri, she was saying that they shouldn't be in a leadership position anymore, like they shouldn't be giving Bhagavatam class, or they shouldn't be like leading kirtans and guiding the congregation because of what they've done. But I was wondering what you would say.
Yeah, well, one thing I'll say is I'm more. You're asking my opinion. Typically, I mean, I'm not inclined to give opinions in Bhagavatam class, but I'm more aligned with what Srila Prabhupada's policy, although it's unpopular. Nowadays, there's a culture of generally, if a leader, especially if they commit a mistake, is they're kind of put on a cross and crucified because of distasteful incidents in the past, and also generally people in leadership positions. They have a spotlight on them, so even a small fault may be there, it's magnified. But Srila Prabhupada's position was more, and anyway, you see this in comments, usual society too, but Srila Prabhupada's position was more of forgiveness and rectification, even to a quite extreme extent. I was citing this incident of the temple president in the British area, in London. There's another incident in Detroit, very similar. The temple president, he wasn't going to temple programs, he wasn't following, he wasn't chanting his rounds. And the devotees of the temple, they wanted to replace him as temple president. Sounds like a reasonable thing to do. I mean, the temple president isn't chanting his rounds, he's not going to the program. Should he be temple president? No, presumably. But Srila Prabhupada's policy was that to rectify him, give him, he should remain. Actually, I think they replaced him, and Srila Prabhupada became upset, actually. He wanted him reinstituted as temple president. He wanted to give him another chance on the principle that he has done so much service. So, especially if a leader has done much service for Srila Prabhupada's movement, and you see this too with Srila Prabhupada's own leading disciples, many of them had difficulties, but Srila Prabhupada, he forgave them in practically every single instance. Hardly did Srila Prabhupada reject the disciple, and even those specifically regarding leaders, Srila Prabhupada's overall policy was better to try to correct it first rather than change it. Srila Prabhupada he was quite opposed to changing managers. He was more in favor of stable management, even if it means working or like having to cope with some difficulties. So that's one thing. That's Srila Prabhupada's own position, which I personally feel like, anyway, his society. He wanted the society like that. So, of course, it's a little nuanced thing. It depends exactly what's happened, how long ago those difficulties were there, what exactly happened, when you get into the details. But, yeah, exactly. There's a long section in Muda Mission, which we should be getting this week, sometime this week, hopefully, which you're going to read about. There's a section in management, leaders, removal and rectification, also wayward disciples, Srila Prabhupada, which I was quoting from today, Srila Prabhupada's own dealings with disciples who are falling away as leaders as well. So, but largely, Srila Prabhupada, he would keep his leaders, even if they had some sort of difficulties in devotional service. So, that's my opinion. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Anything? Jiru, you have something? Anything else from the Matus? No? Okay.
I'd just like to say a few things I heard from Guru Maharaj in this regard. There's one particular leader and guru who fell down, and the society, even still today, is pretty, like you're saying, they crucify him.
Yeah.
And humiliate, and someone in that, anyways, he's come back into the society and he's repented for what he's done, and he's changed, he's fixed up, but still he goes places and people give him evil looks and this kind of thing. And Guru Maharaj just makes a point that this isn't encouraging for his spiritual life. Like, you make some mistake in your life and you want to get over it, but then it kind of just like haunts you like a ghost.
Yeah.
Or like a shadow. It like follows you wherever you go. And it's not so, anyways, to demonize people that have done bad things in the past but are trying to do better, it's not good for their spiritual life.
Yeah.
And another thing I've heard Guru Maharaj say, which I thought was a really good point, I've said this before, he was talking to devotees in a European country, and their guru had just fallen down, and Maharaj was giving a class in that congregation. And Maharaj was saying how, we know this person as a great devotee. All the service they did for Srila Prabhupada and all the service they've done for you and for the Society of Krishna Consciousness. And we remember that person as, we remember their devotional qualities. But then they got themselves mixed up in some mess. And this is a material contamination. But this is not actually their real identity. As someone who's fallen down and gotten into this mess, it's not their real identity. Their true spiritual position is as a devotee of Krishna. And whatever mess they've gotten into, it's just some temporary material covering, but it's not who they really are. So,
yeah, it's true. Even in the case of both in an ontological sense and also often when it happens in those sorts of instances, it's just devotees become bewildered. I mean, devotees come to the Krishna consciousness movement, and most of them, they join temples and surrender their lives to Krishna, or at least try to do so. So that motive is there. So that motive, in other words, that same motive, it can become, it's just like you're saying, that service record, it shows that the real dedication of where the person lies and actually where their heart is. Even if there's some weakness of heart, that doesn't negate all of that service or their genuine feeling towards their spiritual master or the movement or towards Krishna or any of that. Now they become envious, that's another thing. But yeah, that's another So yeah. So that's why it's important even for those because it's quite common, at least among the outside Vaishnava society, that devotees tend to get demonized for these things, especially those in a management position. But the result is that when they're not welcome at many temples, it's like, where do you get the sadhu sangha if you can't even go to a temple? It becomes very, very difficult. Spiritual violence, actually, it's jiva himsa, because you're obstructing that person's spiritual life. Some considerations may be there. I mean, as specific instances, okay, maybe it may not be so good for this devotee to go to one center where he may have fought with devotees or something happened in that center, but it doesn't mean we should ban him for the association of Vaishnavas. If we ban him for the association of Vaishnavas, we may as well just cast him in the material world perpetually. That's what Krishna does to demons. So we shouldn't do that. So.
Where's the line, I guess, because, okay, like you're saying, the temple president's not chanting and going to the programs and give them another chance. It's pretty understandable. And then okay, maybe they have a fall down, these kinds of things. But we see really, really dark things that have happened. Just horrible things that devotees have done.
Yeah.
That seem unforgivable. Just completely destroying people's lives and murder and things like that. So where's the line where, this person shouldn't be allowed back, or they shouldn't be forgiven? Is it ever possible like that, or?
Certainly it's possible. If you look at Krishna's policy, what horrible things have we done? We've done such horrible things that we've been sent to hell for it. I mean, it's not unreasonable to say that I've killed brahmanas. I mean, anyway, I don't want to list so many abominable things, but it's not unreasonable to say such things, At least killing animals, at least in this life, I can say I've participated in some sort of things like that. I mean, it's a horrible activity, but Krishna forgives. No matter what, despite whatever, if you look at the policy of Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no matter how horrible the act was, when the jiva becomes sincere to turn his face towards him and renounce those things, Krishna gives facility. So if we're to be representatives of Krishna, shouldn't we offer that same facility? Of course, there may be considerations in time, place, and circumstance. But, say something horrible happened, maybe 30 years ago, should the person be barred from going back to Godhead? Should he be barred from given an opportunity to opening the gates for liberation and rectifying himself. Krishna doesn't seem to do so. And it doesn't seem like even Srila Prabhupada was of that mentality. A little controversial opinion because it's at odds with what most people think and even conventional understanding. But where the line is a little vague. The thing is, often these things, if you're speaking about horrible things, the thing is often is mirrored by one's own emotions and the emotions of those devotees involved, and it's quite a emotionally charged situation. But personally, viewing it from an objective, detached standpoint, no jiva can be barred. It's their inherent right to go back home, back to Godhead. It's the inherent right of the jiva in one sense. In one sense, we say it's a privilege to associate with devotees, which it is, but in another sense, it's inherent to the nature of the jiva to do so. Because in the spiritual world, so of course, devotee association, this and that, but the thing is like, a Vaishnava should not outright reject, you know what I mean? They shouldn't, anyway, I guess you understand what I'm like trying to convey. But like it's situational, and you really have to see the person and what exactly happened. There's been many different things, and many different devotees have committed horrible things. Even some devotees we may know, we may not even be aware of, but they're fine. They're great. They're still great devotees. They're devotees of Krishna. They've served Krishna throughout their life. They've served Srila Prabhupada throughout their life, and that's more than any. Just that small devotional service alone, one small act for Krishna, even one offers water to Krishna, that small offering is billions and billions of times greater. Just as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, that one neophyte Vaishnava ringing a bell in a temple is millions and millions of times greater than even if you combine all the philanthropic workers, philosophers, etc. in this world together, their activities. So even if a small amount of devotional service can overcome even all the pious activities, is greater than even all the pious activities in this world, what to speak of all the sinful activities? One small act of devotion can liberate you from all. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita at the end of it. Oh, do not fear, I will release you from papa. Your sins, I will release you from your sins. So we have to understand that Krishna will release you from your sins. So, of course, it's a little controversial to speak like this, but philosophically, this is an understanding. So,
A couple other quick things then. So, what if they're a danger to like other children
they're a danger
or something?
To keep them away. Of course, where the line is like vague because it's gray line. If there's a danger, you have to keep them out.
Yeah.
Because if they're a danger, then if that danger is there, then it could be a danger to other Vaishnavas. That's one consideration. Could also be a danger to their own selves. Just like so many different things. Just like I don't know, somebody who has. Anyway, I won't give examples, but you can understand. So.
And then what about this whole thing about Prabhupada said that there's there's demons in this movement that are trying to destroy it or something like that?
Yeah, two of which made it into print. Actually, no, one got cut. Yeah. So what about it? You're just asking.
What? So it seems like if those people are identified as that, then they should be.
Yeah, they're not actually
rejected,
devotees, though.
Right. Okay.
In one sense, they may be doing something to get some benefit. What to do about those devotees? Well, Srila Prabhupada, we shouldn't be. I'm speaking this, but we shouldn't be just rosy-eyed either. There are demons in the guise of devotees, as Srila Prabhupada writes. Demons within the Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada, he told one of his servants that there's one of my disciples who is simply waiting that when will this old man die so he can then inherit and make organization like that. So there are devotees like that. So we shouldn't be deceived by Mayavadis in the dress of a so-called Vaishnava, duplicitous people in the dress of a Vaishnava. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also sings, I don't know the Bengali for it, but that he's wearing Kuntimala Tilak, but he's a disciple of Kali, Kali Chela. So such people exist, and such people we can expect to be within the Krishna consciousness movement, because Srila Prabhupada says so. That's why I'm saying sincerity. You have to see the sincerity of a devotee. What is he actually doing? And what is his purpose? Sometimes that can be hard to see, and sometimes it may be a little unclear, granted, but we should give people the benefit of the doubt and see what is their history be, what is their overall motive, what is their attitude in devotional service. If somebody's materially motivated, typically you can tell. Krishna, he gives intelligence to devotees as well to be able to discriminate such things. So, yeah, there's also a section about this in Buddha Mission, about demons within the Krishna consciousness movement. So those people we should be wary about and keep them at a distance. Even then, it doesn't mean we should necessarily completely push them out of the society. Because Srila Prabhupada, he was hopeful for even those people with ill motives or those people who are crooked. I mean, if we can't, this Krishna consciousness is literally their only hope. If bad men come to us, we have the hope of rectifying them. Otherwise, if they go out, what is their hope? They'll just remain bad men and go to hell. Of course, we shouldn't compromise ourselves in our own devotional service for the sake of doing that, granted, but if possible, we could make an arrangement. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes host even insincere people, and often it was like that. Many devotees many people who came to just like for examples, one devotee who left his body recently, his intention, he joined the movement, he joined the temple because he wanted to steal Srila Prabhupada's watch. He wanted to rob Srila Prabhupada. But he became a devotee. He surrendered to Srila Prabhupada. He understood that he was exhausted. So his motive was completely mixed up in coming to devotee. It was actually ill motive. But, he was purified from it. There's so many instances like that, So, yeah. Okay? Okay, yes? 2 minutes.
So what would be an example of a subtle fall down? Would that be listening to karmi music or something?
Yeah, you could take it like that. What Srila Prabhupada writes, for example, for a brahmachari to look at a woman lustfully, or think of women, think of sex, and it's a sort of fall down. It's a subtle form of fall down. That's for a brahmachari. Different ashrams have different subtle fall downs. Definitely listening to mundane music, that is a sort of fall down. Of course, then the definition of fall down gets a little more broad. Fall down, literally, you could take it as fall down from the principles of devotional service. Not hearing karmi music is a principle of the Bhagavatam. Gramya Gita Nashinyuyad. One should not hear mundane music. So if we're hearing mundane music, we're falling from the principles of the Bhagavatam. So that's one thing. It's not a gross fall down. It is a subtle fall down. Philosophical fall down could also be there. That's also a subtle fall down. There are many different things, but succinctly, if we're reading something in the book, we're not actually doing it, or we've gone away from that, you could take it as a subtle fall down. So, you have something, Mataji? Yes. Okay. 1 minute.
So I was reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam about, at the time of death, the Yamadutas come to take, the sense gratifier, and you have to suffer through some hellish conditions for some time. I can't quote correctly, but in Srila Prabhupada's purports, he was explaining that although the criminal will, the thief will serve some time, and basically if the criminal gets away with theft and he doesn't get caught, but he still has to serve that time if he does,
Yeah.
I have this misconception where if you're doing devotional service and you're trying to get to the level of being Krishna conscious, but you still have to reap some of your your karma and stuff like that. Then how do you explain at the time of death? Do you still have to do some
Undergo it?
Yeah,
Rectify
you have
it?
to get some penance from what
No,
you've done.
the karmani nidrahati kintucha bhakti bhajam. That karma is in the Brahma Samhita. That karma is taken away by Krishna. And Krishna directly directs the devotee's life. So succinctly, because my time is short, when you become initiated by the devotional service directly destroys karma, especially when you become initiated by a spiritual master, the karma is gone. Example is the fan, unplugged fan. The fan is still spinning, but there's no more power. It's still, and not only the fan is still spinning, we give that example, but the thing is Krishna is personally directing how the fan is spinning. He dictates the movements of how the fan is spinning. Otherwise, he could just stop the fan altogether. But for our own advancement in devotional service, he allows the fan to keep spinning. So that's succinctly, no, at the time of death, we don't have to continue to work out those things, to see those things finished, because they're already finished. Already we were liberated. not exactly in that sense, but Krishna can liberate us at any time. He directly oversees what karma we sow, reap. And that karma is not exactly karma in the sense of karma. We say karma. More it's just, actually directly you say it's just Krishna acting within our lives to purify us, more than is actually karma. Because the karma is gone. The karma is taken by the spiritual master. So, literally speaking. Is that okay? Clear? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Madhu Pandita ki jai, Sri Sita Thakurani ki jai, Sri Jahnavī Mata ki jai. Yeah. If you search Madhu Pandita, that's the only thing you find.